It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of a bank in formation. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank Show today, and wow, I've got so much to talk about today. I've got a lot of things I'm frustrated about today. And if you listened last week, you heard I was frustrated about the PPP program and things that were coming out about it. And to be frank with you, reading more about who was given loans, what happened, and how it all worked out, I'm frankly even more frustrated. And, you know, I don't like feeling this way. Gosh, this is Christmas week. You know, personally, I like to, enjoy this time. But, I just have a really hard time. Some of you probably have seen this. I think the best message, video, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen, if you haven't seen this already, you should just go online, go to YouTube or go social media or just about anywhere. This has gone viral, so literally it's everywhere, but it's called Pineapple Hill Saloon Video. And basically what this video, it's a short 2 or 3 minute video. And it's this gal who's the owner of the Pineapple Hill Saloon in L.A., She's owned this business, I think, something for like a decade or so. And she shows a video that she shares, and it's heartfelt, it's passionate, it's riveting, it's heartbreaking. She has done a better job of communicating the heartbreak, I should say, of small business owners regarding these shutdowns, probably better than anything else I've seen or heard anywhere. So again, if you haven't seen this already, it's 2-3 minutes. Absolutely worth your time. Go check out Pineapple Hill Saloon Video. The premise of the video, bottom line is, as many of us know, California, particularly, other places have too, other states have gone into another round of shutdowns, and maybe even more stringent or restrictive than previous rounds of shutdowns. That's not the big issue. The big issue here really is, and I understand there's COVID cases are up, hospital beds are getting filled up. Understand all that. But it's the heavy-handed, I talked about this last week. I've been talking about this, frankly, for months. It's the heavy-handed, top-down approach that people are, quote-unquote leaders in government have taken to basically pick winners and losers. And when you see this video, it just shows in stark contrast the difference of basically one business being a winner and another loser because of a rule that a county commissioner, health board, or governor has put in place. The bottom line is, this gal who owns this business, this Pineapple Hill Saloon, she spent something like $80,000 to create outdoor dining. She shows it in her video. It looks very, very nicely done, very safe. Like she said, the seats are 7 feet apart. She followed all the guidelines. And then, of course, outdoor dining has been shut down also completely in L.A. County and I guess large parts of California and many parts of the country. And literally right across the street, we're talking maybe 20 feet away, there is a whole tent set up, catering set up, which looks nearly identical to her setup, her outdoor dining setup. Now, it's for a movie studio where they were feeding a bunch of folks who were doing some movie production, feeding them lunch. That was okay. That was approved. They got a permit. Her outdoor dining restaurant is not approved, and she's forced to close down. As she even explains, she was so upset, and she was giving her because she had to shut down. She was giving her final paychecks. This is what, in essence, she put her over the top. Was she was giving her employees their final paycheck going into the Christmas holiday season, right? Folks, like she said, she worked at that restaurant for years, some of them decades, until basically they don't have a job anymore because, she's been shut down. And you walk out the door of the restaurant, and there's a whole huge catering thing literally across the street. It's heart-wrenching. And like she said, she very likely will lose everything. Now, there's been a GoFundMe There's been a significant amount of contributions, which is awesome. There's been tremendous amounts of support, she said, since she posted that video. Like I said, it went viral. Millions have seen it. And that's great. And like she said, because of that outpouring, she will probably survive. But so many of her cohorts and other business owners like her won't. And, why is this such a problem? Why do we care? This is Money Radio. We're supposed to talk about financial stuff, money, investments, all that kind of good stuff. Why should it matter? Well, it should matter to you a lot. And here's the reason why. Statistics have shown for a very long time that approximately 50% of all employment is employees are small business. So about half half of the employment of our country works for small businesses. This Pineapple Hill Saloon owner even refers to a quote or study. I've seen this article myself from Yelp. They're predicting something like across the country, 61% of small business listings are already listed as permanently closed. Let's say half the small businesses in America. Now, that won't be true across the board because there's different levels of shutdowns, thankfully. Different governors of different states have responded to this COVID situation differently, and thankfully. But certain parts of the country that have had significant extended shutdowns will see easily, let's say, half their small business disappear once this is all over, which hopefully is soon because there is a vaccine that's starting to get put out there. It appears to work. It appears that all the good news, it's great news. So we seem to be like rounding third. We're coming into the end of this. We just got to get past. I talked about that a lot last week. And if you missed last week's shows, I'd really encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com and listen because I talk a lot about this. And the thing, I guess, what I'm trying to drive at is if half the small business in major swaths of the country are gone, well, that'll mean about a quarter of the jobs will be gone also. What will our country look like going forward at 25% unemployment rate, for example? Now, there'll be businesses that'll fill the gap and come back. And just like every economic cycle, the weaker players, sort of the survival of the fittest, right, fall off the wayside. And that's a natural progression. It's a healthy thing to keep the businesses that do a better job of providing products and services to clients. They survive and thrive in tougher times, and those that don't. But this is a situation, I don't think, where this Pineapple Hill Saloon was doing a bad job. Seems like she had a thriving business. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other, but it seemed like she had a good business. She'd been there over 10 years. The restaurant industry is notoriously difficult, so the fact she was there for 10 years and operating, that says something. She's doing something right. It wasn't because she was being a bad business owner or providing bad service or bad food or anything else. It's because someone, a leader, quote unquote, in a government position decided, or elected position decided that what she's doing is dangerous and we're going to shut it down. And giving her no recourse, no lifeline. That's where I have the problem. We're going to talk about this further and how the economic and money repercussions of all this going forward, both in the short and long term, could really impact all of us. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. And I would normally, this time of year, be pretty happy and joyous. I love the Christmas season. That's just who I am. It's something I've always, felt, and it's just that's me. And again, I'm not trying to offend anybody or anything. For those who don't celebrate or anything like that, it's just that's me. That's what I love. But I'm going to tell you, this 2020, I guess, is just it never fails to offer new surprises, right? It never fails to shock, and just when you thought something couldn't get crazier, something else happens that's crazier. or you think, gosh, that could never happen, and then it happens. So I've been talking about this Pineapple Hill Saloon video. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to check it out. Google it, go to YouTube, go anywhere, social media, it doesn't matter. It's gone viral. You can see it everywhere. In fact, this owner of this restaurant in L.A., it's a 2 or 3 minute video, but it really shows the contrast of the impact of how arbitrary, top-down, blanket shutdowns are so inherently unfair and how they hurt real people. I understand we have to have, she talks about this in the video, I understand we need to take safety measures and things like that. She's done all the things that was asked, and then some, and then was shut down anyway, along with every other restaurant, I guess, in most of California, for example, and other parts of the country. Again, should we care? And when you watch that video, it's heart-wrenching. But it really shows she does a great job, better than I've ever seen anyone else, of explaining and sharing the devastating impact of government just making arbitrary decisions and picking winners and losers. You know, that's just not what our country was founded on. It's not what our country was built upon. It's not what our country has ever stood for, at least as far as I perceive. But yet it's happening in front of us. And I guess some of the questions I'm going to ask is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to sit by and do nothing and just watch this happen? Or say, well, it didn't happen to me, so I'm okay. Which really kind of brings me to my second issue that I'm of frustration and concern about, and I've been talking about this more and more, is this PPP loan program. That's the Paycheck Protection Program that was put out in, April or May, roughly, part of the CARES Act, that was designed to help small businesses. That's what we were told, okay? It was designed to help small businesses keep their employees on the payroll, and for like a 3-month period, roughly. Because at that point, a lot of people still thought that this COVID thing would be short-term, short-lived, and so basically would shut down. In essence, cover the expenses, cover the payroll expenses for these small businesses, so these people wouldn't lose their jobs. Okay, all right. Well, that's a noble thing. Anyone who's listened to me at any time at all knows I've shared this from a political standpoint. I kind of lean pretty libertarian. In other words, I'm pretty much a live and let live kind of person. I want a minimum of government influence, whatever the absolute minimum necessary. I would be even considered maybe a constitutionalist, because in the Constitution it lays out what the federal government can do, and then it reserves all the other rights of the states, which has been trampled upon so dramatically that's not even funny. When you read it, you wouldn't even recognize our current country to what the founding fathers intended. But that's beside the point. I'm generally in a negative view in terms of government involvement. How's that? My attitude is, I think, past several election cycles have confirmed that we're a very divided country, no doubt. And it seems like about half want more government involvement in their lives, and about half just don't. And that's kind of where we land. Forget the personalities and the politics and everything else involved, the policies. When you boil it down, it's pretty much what it comes down to. And because of my history, my family history, I've shared this before, I'm half Hungarian. I was born here in the U.S. My dad escaped Hungary in 1956 from the Soviets. He literally was in a church meeting, the story goes, I've been told, by a family. And somebody ran in the back of the church and yelled, and he was in, by the way, for those of you that don't know the history, that was the first uprising against the Soviets, after in essence, the wall came down. Basically, it was the first uprising where they wanted the Soviets out, the communists out. And the first real protest, large protest. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of people were protesting on the Parliament Square and things like this by this time. And the story goes, my dad was in a church at a meeting of a large number of protesters. So I guess I come from a family of protesters who see, when they see things aren't right, stand up and challenge that. But, somebody came in the back of the door and yelled, the tanks are coming. And literally, him and his brother-in-law, my uncle, ran west. They didn't go home. They didn't get clothes. They knew that if they went home and told their families would know where they were, and that could cause them to be in trouble. They literally ran west. The tanks got there about 2 hours later. They crossed the Austrian border the next day. The day after that, the borders were closed. Some stories are told. It's hard, because my dad's passed away a number of years ago. So was my uncle and some of that. But my cousins and stuff still tell some of the stories that, they're shot at trying to cross the border, things like that. Okay? Serious stuff. The thing is, and they ended up, ultimately, my dad ended up in the United States as a legal immigrant. I'm first generation. So I think you can understand from that background, that family history, that heritage, where there's an aversion to government control. Folks that have lived that firsthand or are close to people who've lived that understand what I mean. More government is not looked on favorably. So that's why I would say probably that's shaped my political thinking and viewpoint more than anything else. And that's why I would say I lean, if you want to define because there's some things I agree with liberals. There's some things I agree with conservatives, okay? I don't fit in a box real well. But if you were going to identify my political views, it would have to be more libertarian. And the funny thing is, I think most people who would define them, it's interesting when you ask them what their policies are and what they believe in, more view as libertarian than many think. But that's another point. My thing is, so when I see government involvement, I'm naturally suspicious. I'm naturally negative to the idea. So when the whole CARES Act, Paycheck Protection Program, and all these kind of things came about, although it was overwhelmingly in favor, bipartisan support, all those things, it was considered an emergency help, all these things, that's all well and good, but think about the cause. The root cause was because basically the government started shutting down business, started shutting down commerce, started forcing people to stay at home and things like that. I started wearing a mask 2-3 weeks before the requirements started coming out here in Arizona. Why? Because I saw cases were going up. In other words, folks, I'm an adult. I'm smart enough to understand. And I didn't wear a mask all the time. I wore it when it was appropriate, when I was indoors around other people. When I went to Costco, for example, I wore a mask. I didn't have any problem with it. Okay, I wore it before they required it because I recognized that there was a risk. This is a virus. A virus is transmitted airborne. I'm not a medical professional, but any grade school kid knows that. Okay? And when they shut down things like parks and trails and outdoor things, that made no logical sense to me whatsoever. Because to stay healthy, what's the best way to avoid any illness, virus or otherwise? Any medical doctor or medical professional will tell you, you boost your immune system, folks. You sleep right, you eat right, you exercise. And when they started shutting down the outdoor activity availabilities, which was one of the smartest things you could do to stay healthy through a pandemic, no logical sense at all. We're going to talk about this a little further because I got some things about the Paycheck Protection Program that could very potentially impact your money going forward, particularly next year. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All right, we're back, and I'm talking about a lot of things I'm frustrated about today. And, I apologize. It's Christmas week. We're supposed to be happy, enjoy a season, right? It's hard to be when you see some of these things, and I guess I'm close to it. As I stated before, first-generation American. I see what government interference has done to people's lives. I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I work with many business owners. And so I'm in the trenches almost. I'm in the trenches, so I see it firsthand. I'm working with a lot of clients who have businesses and have had businesses sometimes for decades, even sometimes generations, that are just hurting, flat out hurting. The COVID restrictions and stuff, I don't think anyone can argue, has probably impacted small business more than any other group. And there are people that are making rules that are causing devastating results with little or no scientific evidence or anything else like that. There's court rulings. Like I said, the Restaurant Association in California and LA, I guess, won a court order, basically, when they prevented the outdoor dining, because they basically weren't able to prove, the Board of Health was unable to prove any increase in transmission in court from an outdoor dining situation where people were taking the proper precautions. And then the governor of California turned around, I don't know, matter of days or a week later, just shut them down all anyway. So I guess they're going to have to go to this. I hope they do. I hope they fight it in the state court and win. They're going to have to fight for their rights. And that's what's happening. We have people and entities and leaders, quote unquote, I'm going to say, who are making decisions that are dramatically impacting people's lives. And it's not impacting theirs, interestingly enough. And you got to start asking the question, why are they doing some of these things that they're doing? I don't know the answer, okay? I wish I did. But you got to start questioning some of these things. And like I said, if you haven't seen, I'm really encouraging folks, if you haven't seen the Pineapple Hill Saloon video, go online, social media, Google it, YouTube, whatever. It's gone viral. It's everywhere. Highly recommend watching this 2 or 3 minute video, because the owner of the owner of this saloon, this restaurant, has done a better job of expressing the problem and highlighting the inconsistency than anything I've ever seen. It's heart-wrenching, but it gets to the point, and which also gets my point to the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program. Again, it was sold to us, so to speak, as a way of helping businesses keep employees in place during the initial round of COVID restrictions. And as more and more information comes out, you have to expect a certain level of corruption and folks that'll take advantage of the system. I get that. I'm not naive. But the level of folks taking advantage of the system is what I find disheartening, mind-boggling. This was designed to help small business, supposedly. And unfortunately, the statistics are showing, the cases are showing, that a majority of the money didn't go to what we would consider true small business. It went to more connected, powerful people and businesses, for the most part. And what do I mean by that? I talked about this last week. Tom Brady got nearly $1 million for one of his businesses. Now, I'm not saying Tom Brady broke any rules. I'm not against Tom Brady. I know there's people out there that love him and there's others that hate him. That's not my point. It's that he's a multimillionaire. So is his wife. I think his business, whatever it was probably well positioned to keep employees on for a few months. But he got $1 million from the PPP program. Recently, just bought $1 million luxury yacht. Coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. The French Laundry restaurant, example of, became famous because Governor Newsom of California ate there without any COVID restrictions, without any masks, anything like that, indoor basically. Immediately after basically shutting down and basically encouraging his state to do the opposite. So we're seeing a lot of leaders, and I say that quote unquote, who are like, do as I say, but not as I do. Where are the real leaders today? That's, I guess, a big question. But turns out the French Laundry restaurant, which is a very high-end, Michelin-rated restaurant, got apparently 17 times the average amount of monies, something like over $2 million, than the typical restaurant of their size in their region. Why? A lot of politicians like to eat there. Is there some connections? I don't know. Governor Newsom himself got quite a bit of money. I think a couple million I was reading. I don't have it right in front of me. For his businesses. He's a wealthy individual. He's the governor of one of the largest states in the country. Obviously has connections. When the Paycheck Protection Program first came out, I know many business owners who were scrambling to submit their applications and get the funds and all that kind of stuff. And the money ran out, folks, by the way, in about a week or so. It was quick. It was fast. So here's the thing. A lot of these well-connected folks understand they get advantages in life in general. Understand that. But when they were taking money that they frankly didn't really need, they were taking away from others who genuinely did. And do they care? I don't know. Do they realize or thought through what they were doing? I don't know. I know this, when I looked at the program, our business qualified for it, or would have qualified for it, and I thought about it. We were also considering making some major changes even prior to COVID to our business model in terms of employees and staff and things like that, and looking at more virtual office options and things like that prior to COVID. So I could have gamed the system, obtained some funds from the government, gotten some money for employees and that kind of thing, and then let them go, I guess. But I just didn't feel it was the right thing to do. Also, I just didn't feel, maybe I'm a little old-fashioned. and I don't regret that. I'll say that. But I looked at it as, is this the right thing to do? Does our business really need this? And thankfully we didn't. We haven't really. I mean, would it help? Sure. I felt like there was other businesses out there, particularly a lot of the clients I was working with, who definitely needed it more than I. The restaurant, for example, come to mind immediately. Many other types. Gyms, things like that. I just didn't feel like our business needed it that badly. I'm in the financial industry. I've been speaking around the country to financial groups about the Your Personal Bank concept, how to maximize. See, I guess how to maximize growth, how to have monies available for emergencies and opportunities, right? Minimize taxes, gain control of your money, not rely on other people and the government and other places, have some freedom. And I guess what I'm saying is I was practicing what I preached. We had some reserves. We had some ability I was doing the things I was teaching our clients to do. So when this crisis came about with COVID shutdowns, we were fairly well prepared for it. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's about being self-reliant. You need to have some of these things in place. That's what Your Personal Bank does. It can really help accomplish many of those things. But it's also about what is morally right and wrong. Does it even matter anymore today in our society? Because when you see situations like this, and I'll tell you what, this is, to me, is quite egregious too. I'm a Christian. I've been involved in many churches over my lifetime, very involved at some times. And I see, and not currently, because part of the same reason I'm seeing right here. It turns out hundreds of churches had pocketed millions from the PPP program to pay their staffs. See, I have a philosophical problem with that. And understand, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, but I have a problem with this. They don't pay any tax. And not only that, they don't have to report what they spend they don't have to report anywhere where they spend their funds. It's like a black hole, unlike other charitable organizations. I have some real philosophical difficulty with that. And I'm going to come back and start challenging. Where's the leadership on this? So stay tuned in the next segment. We're going to talk about this a little further and how it impacts your money. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back. We're rounding third and finishing up. And I guess what I'm going to say is we're slaying a lot of sacred cows today because I'm frustrated by what I'm seeing. A lot of the things, and it's kind of finishing up 2020. And I guess it's par for the course, isn't it? Because 2020 has been a crazy year, just been crazy. My biggest issues are, like I said, the way this Paycheck Protection Program has been handled, who the monies went to, it's just a mess. And I kind of talked about it in the beginning. It doesn't surprise me, but the level of folks that, frankly, in my opinion, took advantage of the system, I find appalling. And I mean this, when I talk about there was a limited amount of funds, the money ran out literally in a week or two. Okay, I mean, I was in the trenches working with a lot of clients, helping them trying to get funding. I know a lot of bankers. I know the president of several banks. I know. I know the chairman of the board of a bank. I mean, if I wanted to get a paycheck protection loan, I certainly could have, I think. I didn't apply for it because I didn't feel like our business needed it that much. Yes, we were going to have to pivot, make some changes, and we did. We were looking at making some of those changes anyway. Just COVID restrictions accelerated the process, okay? But I just didn't feel like, most importantly to me personally, is it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right to take money from the government. By the way, none of us are taking money from the government. Where is the government getting their money from in the first place? It's taxpayer money. It's our money. It's money we're contributing to on taxes, right? I didn't feel like taking the public's money. I didn't feel like it was right. When I knew I was in a business that didn't really need it that badly, and others did. But obviously, a lot of other people and organizations didn't have qualms with it, because I talk about Tom Brady, who I think we can all agree probably didn't need the money, took $1 million, and then recently bought a yacht. French Laundry, the restaurant where the California government was caught breaking its own rules. Hopefully, there's a recall coming up, it looks like, because of it. So maybe we'll pay the price for this. That would be appropriate, in my opinion. But they got something like 17 times the amount of PPP funds that a typical restaurant their size in their area got. It's just ridiculous. Due to connections? I don't know. Hundreds of churches received millions of dollars, and they don't even pay taxes. And I'm not against churches. Don't get me wrong. I've been involved with many of them. I'm a Christian myself. I just don't think it's right. The Catholic Church, I think they pointed out here, might have taken as much as $3.5 billion with a B. And here's the problem: and yes, they have staff. I understand that, and they had payroll and things like that, and they had to shut down just like everybody else. But they don't pay any taxes. Look, if you're not going to pay into the system, you're not going. Why should you be receiving benefits from it? See, it's just philosophically. I don't think they broke any rules, but it doesn't look good. And I guess, and then to me, the most egregious example are these donor-advised funds. Donor-advised funds, if you don't know what these are, it's a way for particularly wealthy individuals and such, to put some funds there. It's a way to reduce income taxes, immediate and long-term. There's some charitable aspects to it where you can donate to charities and things like that. It's where you get the deductions. I've recommended a number of clients. I've worked for these programs. I've worked with a number of clients who have these kind of programs. They can work for a client really well. But apparently, hundreds of these donor advised funds also receive PPP funds for their payroll, for their staff. And one of them, it's particularly egregious, and I think it's probably, to me, the most egregious thing. Remember, this is supposed to be a charitably inclined. It's like a foundation, okay? A donor advised fund is like a foundation, if you will. It's supposed to be charitably inclined. That's why it has tax favor benefits, okay? Well, one of them said, well, we have $4 million in cash. They have a cash reserve of $4 million, emergency fund. And as the manager of it said, I really hate to dip into that, so that's why we went into our PPP. We submitted and got approved for a PPP loan to pay our payroll for our folks for a few months. Folks, they had the money. Did they break any rules? I don't think so. Did they break the spirit of the law? What was trying to be accomplished here? I do think that. Does it look bad? Incredibly so. Was it the right thing to do? I don't see how anyone could argue that. It's just wrong. And I guess what it really boils down to, and this was the biggest, the CARES Act was $2.2 trillion, I believe, in total that was basically given out to various things to support the economy and all that. So this is the biggest financial boondoggle in history. And ultimately, who's going to pay for this? It's you and me, the taxpayers. And not only us, probably our kids and our grandkids, if not longer than that. And I guess what it really comes down to is this. What type of country do we want to live in? What type of society do we want to be? Do we want to basically devolve into anarchy, almost, if you will, where it's every man for himself, and I do what I'm going to do whatever I can for me, and not worry about anybody else? Are we going that route? I don't know. Are we going to allow leaders to make decisions that dramatically impact people's lives? And it appears something like in certain parts of the country in particular, half the small businesses won't be around next year. They'll be gone, and not only gone, but gone forever. Will new businesses pop up and take their place, replace them? Eventually, yes. Over time. How long will that take? Don't know. How's that going to affect our money? How's that going to affect our economy? By the way, how's that going to affect employment? And you want me to give you another big one? And like I said, I'm sorry to dump all this at sort of the end of the year and a Christmas week, but I think this is the time of year to really ponder and assess where we're at and where we're going. But there's a lot of these folks that haven't paid rent or mortgage for months and months. What happens when these moratoriums expire? What's the value of real estate going to do? You see what is all this going to do to affect our economy and our money? And I guess the most important thing is, what are we going to do about it? We still have rights. We've incrementally given up a lot of our rights. This is one of the things I've been sharing for a while is every time the government takes a right from the people, the individuals, we lose a right. And incrementally, over time, decades even a century or more, that's been going on. When does it stop? When do we stand up and say enough is enough? When do we stop and say, let's make a difference? We can vote with our feet. We can vote with our pocketbook. And we can vote on elections. Now, I know there's a lot of consternation about that, but why not? There's a lot of retired people listening on this radio show. What if some of you voted to be poll watchers next time and make sure when they're voting, somebody's watching it? We need to pay attention to this stuff. And not only volunteer to be a poll watcher maybe in your neighborhood, or maybe you live in a predominantly conservative neighborhood, for example. What about going to some of these places that are not? That have history or a history of shenanigans. Maybe we'll put it that way. Or at least perceived. What about going there? If we want to have a democracy and we want to have freedoms and we want to continue those for not only our lifetime, but our kids and our grandkids' lifetimes, we've got to stand up and take responsibility. Okay? So I encourage everyone, if you're going to eat at a restaurant, before you go, if it's a medium or larger size restaurant, if they took PPP funds, particularly a national chain or something, vote with your pocketbook. Don't go. Support a local small business or small restaurant if you can. Why not? Okay? These are things, and if you have contacts with political leaders, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to them. Let's make a difference. Let's change some of these things, and let's help some of these people that, frankly, are just getting devastated this year. So as always, if you want more information on Your Personal Bank, I didn't talk about it much today, but contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to discuss it with you and how it can enhance your financial future. Take care.
Listen Tuesday at noon and Thursdays at 1 for more information on Your Personal Bank. Contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.